The Seattle skyline glittered like a jagged crown through the floor-to-ceiling windows of my penthouse, but I barely noticed. My phone buzzed relentlessly on the marble kitchen island, each vibration a tiny earthquake. I took another sip of whiskey, the burn grounding me as the name Dad flashed on the screen for the fifth time in 10 minutes. 500 miles away, at my family's waterfront estate on Lake Washington, the Bennett clan was unraveling. And I, Sarah Bennett, the 40-year-old tech CEO who'd bankrolled their gilded lives for years, was the one pulling the strings. Or rather, cutting them. I let the phone ring, savoring the silence between its insistent chirps. My mind drifted to the estate's dining room, that cathedral of polished oak and pretension where my father's voice usually reigned like a dictator's. I could picture it now. The long mahogany table draped in linen so crisp it could cut, the golden centerpiece, a gaudy phoenix sculpture my mother insisted screamed legacy, mocking the 25 relatives seated around it. Empty plates, no turkey, no truffle-stuffed sides, no bespoke desserts from the artisan bakery I'd spent $20,000, 0 cents, to secure, just stunned faces, forks frozen mid-air, and the deafening absence of a feast they'd assumed I'd deliver. Because I always did. Until tonight. Thanksgiving 2024 was supposed to be their crowning performance, the Bennett family's annual spectacle of wealth and togetherness. I had paid for every detail, from the heritage turkey sourced from Cascadia Bistro to the pumpkin soufflés my mother swore rivaled Michelin star kitchens. But they'd made one fatal mistake. They uninvited me. Me. The eldest daughter. The one who'd funneled millions into their accounts, their mortgages, their vacations. They'd called me too intense, said my presence would disrupt the harmony. Harmony. As if our family wasn't a house of cards, built on my credit cards. The phone went silent, then buzzed again. A voicemail. I pressed play and my father's voice crackled through, raw and jagged, nothing like the commanding baritone that used to make me shrink as a kid. Sarah, the food never came. Nothing. The caterers, the bakery, they said you canceled it all. What the hell have you done? You've ruined us. A pause, then a muffled shout in the background. My mother, no doubt, her voice rising like steam. Fix this, Sarah, now. I smiled, swirling the whiskey in my glass. Oh, Dad, I murmured to the empty room. I thought you didn't need me. Let's rewind. 2 weeks ago, I was still the dutiful daughter, the one who never said no. I'd built a tech empire, Nexus Innovations, from a dorm room coding project into a Seattle juggernaut valued at $2 billion, 0 cents. My face graced Forbes covers, my name topped power lists, but to the Bennetts, I was still the family ATM. Need a new yacht? Sarah's got it. Sister's wedding venue falling through? Sarah will cover the deposit. Brother's startup tanking? Sarah's checkbook is open. I didn't mind. At least, I told myself I didn't. It was my role, etched into me since childhood, when I was less a daughter and more a fixer, managing carpools, bandaging knees, and smoothing over my parents' endless dramas. But the betrayal came like a blade. A week before Thanksgiving, my cousin Rachel sent a group chat message. Can't wait for the Bennett feast. Who's bringing the drama this year? I replied, looking forward to it. Save me a seat. Crickets. Hours later, a private text from Rachel. Wait, Sarah, are you actually coming? Your parents said you weren't invited. My stomach dropped. I called my mother, my voice steady despite the tremor in my chest. What's this about me not being invited? She sighed, that theatrical exhale she'd perfected over decades. We're keeping it small, Sarah. Just immediate family. You know how intense you can be. We thought it'd be easier. Easier. The word stung like a slap. I am immediate family, I said, my throat tightening. I'm your daughter. Another sigh. Don't make this a thing. It's just one dinner. But it wasn't. It was a deliberate erasure. My siblings, their spouses, even distant cousins were all invited. Everyone but me. Then the real gut punch landed. My father had called days earlier, casual as ever, asking me to chip in for the Thanksgiving meal. Chip in. I'd wired $20,000, 0 cents, placed every order myself, even coordinated delivery times with Cascadia Bistro and the bakery. They hadn't just excluded me, they'd used me, banking on my reliability while plotting my absence. That's when I snapped. I made 2 calls. The first to Cascadia Bistro, where the manager confirmed my refund in minutes. The second to the bakery, where the owner hesitated until I forwarded the receipt. Then I waited, knowing exactly how it would unfold. And it did. Spectacularly. Back to the present. My phone lit up with the text from Rachel. Sarah, it's a disaster. No food. Your sister's fiance just left. Your mom's locked herself in the wine cellar. What happened? I typed back, check with whoever placed the orders. Her reply came fast. You did, and your mom tried to redirect the payment to her account. Caterer told me. I froze, the whiskey glass halfway to my lips. My mother hadn't just excluded me. She'd tried to steal from me. The audacity was almost admirable. I was still processing when my phone pinged again. An email, no sender name, just a single line. Stay away, or you'll regret it. My pulse spiked. I forwarded it to my head of security, a former Navy SEAL named Marcus, with a note. Trace this now. But the unease lingered, a cold weight in my gut. Someone didn't just want me out. They wanted me scared. The next morning, I was driving to Nexus headquarters, rain sluicing down my windshield, when my brakes failed. The pedal went soft, then nothing, as my Tesla careened down a steep Seattle hill. I yanked the wheel, swerving into a grassy median just before the intersection. Heart pounding, I called Marcus. Someone tampered with my car, I said, voice steady despite the adrenaline. Find out who. By noon, the fallout was spreading. My board of directors called an emergency meeting, their faces grim on the Zoom screen. Sarah, this family drama is becoming a liability, said Helen, the chairwoman, her tone clipped. Clients are asking questions, the press is sniffing around. Is this under control? I leaned into the camera, my CEO mask firmly in place. It's handled. My family's issues won't touch Nexus, but inside I was seething. My mother's lies were bleeding into my empire, and someone, maybe her, maybe not, was escalating things to a dangerous level. The weeks leading to Christmas were a tightrope. Aunt Laura, a retired lawyer with a spine of steel, called me after confronting my parents. Your mother's spinning a story that you had a mental collapse, she said, her voice thick with disgust. She's telling everyone you canceled the food out of spite. But I know the truth, Sarah. They used you. I thanked her, but the words felt hollow. The truth was my shield, but it was also my burden. Then Liam, my younger brother, texted, I didn't know they'd go this far. I'm sorry. Liam, the golden boy who'd always coasted on my sacrifices, was starting to see the cracks in our family's facade. I wanted to believe him, but trust was a luxury I couldn't afford. Christmas Eve 2024 was my countermove. I'd been uninvited again, this time from the Bennett family's annual gala, a black tie affair attended by Seattle's elite. My mother had planned it meticulously, a chance to flaunt her social capital, but I wasn't playing her game anymore. I showed up, unannounced, in a sleek black gown that cost more than her car, my arm linked with my grandfather, Senator William Hargrove. My grandfather was my mother's darkest secret. She'd disowned him years ago after a bitter falling out over money and control. She'd erased him from our lives, forbidden us from speaking his name. But I'd never cut contact. When I told him about Thanksgiving, his blue eyes blazed with fury. They don't deserve you, Sarah, he'd said. Let's remind them who they're dealing with. So we walked into the gala together, his silver hair catching the light, his presence a grenade in my mother's perfect world. The room froze. Conversations died mid-sentence. My mother, resplendent in emerald silk, saw us and swayed, her champagne flute slipping from her hand. She hit the floor in a dead faint, the crowd gasping as my father rushed to her side. Grandfather leaned in, his voice low and amused. Well, that was dramatic. I bit back a laugh, but my eyes scanned the room, catching the whispers, the stares, The phone's already recording. This was no longer a family matter, this was a spectacle. And then, as if scripted, the fire alarm blared. Guests screamed, scrambling for exits as smoke curled from the kitchen. I grabbed grandfather's arm, pulling him toward the terrace, my mind racing. This wasn't an accident. Someone had set the fire, and I had a sinking feeling it was meant for me. The aftermath was chaos. The fire was contained, but the gala was ruined, the estate's kitchen a charred wreck. My mother, revived but shaken, refused to look at me. My father cornered me on the terrace, his face a mask of fury. "You brought him here to humiliate us," he hissed. "And now this fire? What are you playing at, Sarah?" I held his gaze, unflinching. "Maybe you should ask who wants me gone, Dad, because it's not just you and Ma anymore." As I drove home, Marcus called. The fire was arson, gasoline traces near the stove. And your brakes? Definitely cut. Someone's targeting you, Sarah, and they're not subtle. I gripped the wheel, my knuckles whitening. "Keep digging," I said. "I want names." Back in my penthouse, I poured another whiskey, the city's lights blurring through my tears. My family's betrayal was one thing, but this was war. Someone wanted me out, maybe dead, and the list of suspects was growing. My mother, desperate to save face, my father hiding something darker, or someone else, lurking in the shadows of my success. One thing was certain, I wasn't backing down. The Bennetts had underestimated me for the last time, and whoever was pulling the strings, whether it was my own blood or a stranger, they were about to learn what happens when you cross a woman who's built an empire from nothing. The Seattle rain hammered my penthouse windows like 1,000 tiny fists, each drop a reminder of the storm I'd ignited. It was Christmas Eve 2024, hours after I'd crashed my family's gala with my grandfather, Senator William Hargrove, and watched my mother collapse in a heap of emerald silk. The fire in the estate's kitchen, arson, Marcus confirmed, still burned in my mind, its acrid smoke a warning that someone wanted me gone, maybe dead. I stood at my kitchen island, a fresh glass of whiskey in hand, staring at the anonymous email that had haunted me since Thanksgiving. "Stay away or you'll regret it." My phone buzzed again, but I ignored it. I was Sarah Bennett, 40, tech CEO of Nexus Innovations, the woman who'd built a $2 billion zero-cents empire from code and grit. I didn't cower, not from my family, not from anyone. But the cracks were showing. My board was circling, my mother was spinning lies, and someone, maybe her, maybe not, was playing a dangerous game. The fire wasn't a coincidence. Neither was the brake failure that nearly sent me crashing through a Seattle intersection. I had survived both, but survival wasn't enough. I needed answers, and I needed to fight back. Gala's aftermath was a media frenzy. By Christmas morning, my phone was a war zone of notifications. Tech blogs and gossip rags alike had latched onto the story. Nexus CEO's family feud erupts at Seattle Gala. Fire and fainting spell. My mother's allies, a cadre of socialites and distant cousins, were feeding the narrative that I'd orchestrated the chaos out of dangerous instability. I could almost hear her voice, dripping with faux concern. Poor Sarah. She's just not well. It was a masterclass in deflection, and it was working. My board called another emergency meeting, their emails sharp with ultimatums. "Resolve this, Sarah, or we'll be forced to act." I posted on X, my fingers flying across the keyboard. Thriving, not spiraling. Family drama doesn't define me. Nexus is stronger than ever. It was a calculated move, a flare shot into the digital sky to counter my mother's lies. The post went viral, racking up thousands of likes and retweets, but the comments were a mixed bag. Supporters cheered my resilience, trolls called me a spoiled heiress who torched her own family. I didn't care about the noise. I cared about the signal. Someone out there was watching, waiting for me to crack. That afternoon, I met my brother Liam at a dive bar in Capitol Hill. a grimy hole in the wall far from the polished world of our family's estate. He looked different, hollowed out, his usual frat boy swagger replaced by something raw. I didn't know they'd go this far, he said, nursing a beer. Mom's always been intense, but this, it's sick. I studied him, searching for the catch. Liam had spent years coasting on my sacrifices, his startup funded by my checks, his mistakes buried by my fixes. Could I trust him now? She's manipulating everyone, he continued, his voice low. After Thanksgiving, she told me you canceled the food to punish us. I believed her, but then I heard her on the phone, spinning this story about your breakdown. It's all she talks about now, how you're a liability, how you need to be handled. He looked down, shame flickering in his eyes. I should have said something sooner. I leaned back, the bar's neon glow casting shadows across his face. Why now, Liam? What changed? He hesitated, then slid his phone across the table. It was a recording, grainy but clear. My mother's voice, sharp and venomous. Sarah's out of control. We need to protect the family's legacy. If she won't step back, we'll make her. My blood ran cold. This wasn't just about saving face. This was a campaign to destroy me. The next morning, I woke to a nightmare. My penthouse had been broken into overnight. The lock was intact, the alarm disabled. Professionals, Marcus said. Nothing was missing except a single folder from my safe, contracts for Nexus's next big project, a quantum computing initiative worth billions. My heart sank. Those contracts weren't just paper. They were leverage, the kind that could tank my company if they fell into the wrong hands. I called Marcus, my voice steady despite the panic clawing at my chest. Find those contracts. And double security, whoever did this isn't done. As I paced my living room, my phone lit up with a text from my mother. We need to talk. Sunday dinner, 6:00, the estate. Don't make this worse. No apology, no warmth, just a summons, like I was still the obedient daughter she could control. I almost laughed. She thought she could reel me back in, but she'd underestimated how far I'd go to protect what I'd built. That afternoon, my board dropped another bomb. Helen, the chairwoman, called me directly, her voice like ice. Sarah, the family drama is out of control. A rival firm, Quantum Dynamics, leaked details of your Thanksgiving fiasco to the press. Clients are pulling back. Our biggest investor, Grayson Capital, is threatening to walk unless you resolve this. The board's discussing a vote to replace you. I gripped the phone, my knuckles white. Give me a week, I said. This ends now. But as I hung up, doubt crept in. Quantum Dynamics wasn't just a competitor. They were ruthless, with ties to Seattle's shadiest power players. Was their leak a coincidence? Or was someone in my family feeding them ammunition? Sunday arrived like a storm cloud. I pulled up to the Bennett estate, the glass-walled dining room glowing against the twilight. The tension hit me the moment I stepped inside, heavy as a physical weight. My father stood at the head of the table, hands clasped too tightly, his face a mask of restrained fury. My mother sat like a queen on trial, her lips a thin line, her eyes sharp enough to cut. Liam shifted nervously in his seat while my sister Claire stared at her phone, avoiding my gaze. The air crackled with unspoken accusations, and I knew this wasn't just dinner. This was a showdown. My mother spoke first, her voice dripping with venom. Do you have any idea what you've done, Sarah? You humiliated us at the gala. You brought him here to destroy me. She meant grandfather, whose presence had exposed her lies to Seattle's elite. I tilted my head, my voice calm but laced with steel. Which part bothers you more, Mom? That I showed up? Or that people saw you for who you are? She flinched, but her attack didn't waver. You're unstable, Sarah. Everyone sees it. Canceling Thanksgiving, starting that fire. I cut her off, my laugh sharp and cold. The fire was arson, Mom. Someone tried to kill me. Or did you already know that? The room stilled. Liam's eyes widened, and Claire's phone slipped from her hand, clattering onto the table. My father stepped in, his voice low but tense. That's enough, Sarah. Your mother's hurt, and you've done nothing but make her look bad. I turned to him, my anger boiling over. She made herself look bad, Dad. She uninvited me, let me pay $20,000, 0 cents, for a meal I wasn't welcome at, and then tried to steal the funds, and you forged my signature on a loan for this estate. His face paled and a gasp escaped Claire's lips. I hadn't planned to drop that bomb, but Marcus's PI had uncovered the truth days ago. A $5 million 0 cents loan tied to my name to save the estate from foreclosure. My father's betrayal cut deeper than my mother's lies. Liam stood, his voice trembling but firm. She's right, Mom. You used her. You always have. You told everyone she wasn't coming to Thanksgiving because you wanted her out of the way. For me. He turned to me, his eyes raw. They wanted to secure my inheritance, Sarah. They thought if you were gone, I'd get everything. The words hit like a punch. My mother's greed wasn't just personal, it was calculated. A plan to erase me from the family's legacy. Claire finally spoke, her voice barely a whisper. I knew they uninvited you. I didn't say anything because I was scared. I'm sorry. Her guilt was real, but it didn't erase the sting. My family hadn't just betrayed me. They'd conspired against me, each in their own way. Before I could respond, my phone buzzed with an alert from Marcus. Your Nexus account was hacked. Sensitive data leaked. Quantum project specs. It's bad. My stomach dropped. The stolen contracts were already in play, and quantum dynamics was the likely culprit. I stood, my voice steady despite the chaos in my mind. I'm done being your ATM and your scapegoat. You shut me out, lied about me, and now someone's trying to destroy everything I've built. I'm walking away. For good. My mother screamed, her composure shattering. You'll regret this betrayal, Sarah. You don't get to ruin us and walk away. I turned to her, my eyes blazing. You ruined yourselves. I just stopped paying for the cover-up. My father reached for me, his voice breaking. Sarah, wait. I enabled her lies. I'm sorry. It was the first time he'd ever apologized, but it was too little, too late. I walked out, the rain soaking me as I climbed into my car. My mother's texts followed, shallow and desperate. Can we move past this? I left them on read. But as I drove away, Aunt Laura called, her voice urgent. Sarah, your mother's planning something big. I heard her talking to a lawyer, a shady one. Be careful. I thanked her, my mind racing. The lawsuit Marcus had warned me about, my parents claiming I'd stolen family assets, was likely her next move. But who was this lawyer, and what else did they have planned? The weeks that followed were a gauntlet. Grayson Capital, my biggest investor, pulled out, citing my unstable image. The board's vote loomed closer, and Quantum Dynamics released a press statement hinting at acquiring Nexus assets if I stepped down. My penthouse felt like a fortress under siege, every shadow a potential threat. But I wasn't alone anymore. Grandfather sent a letter, his words a lifeline. You're stronger than they'll ever admit, Sarah. Don't let them break you. Aunt Laura checked in daily, her support unwavering. Then came the breakthrough. Claire, of all people, sent me a recording late one night. It was my mother, plotting with the shady lawyer. Sarah's career needs to end. Leak more to Quantum Dynamics, make it look like she's sabotaging her own company. I listened, my hands trembling with rage and relief. This was proof, undeniable evidence of her betrayal. I forwarded it to Marcus and my legal team, my resolve hardening. My mother wasn't just a manipulator, she was a criminal. I hired a private investigator, Elena Voss, who dug deeper. She uncovered ties between my mother's lawyer and Quantum Dynamics, a web of payments and favors that suggested my family's betrayal was part of a larger corporate conspiracy. But the question remained, who sent the anonymous threat after Thanksgiving? Was it my mother, the lawyer, or someone higher up at Quantum Dynamics? And what was in those stolen contracts that made them worth risking everything? Liam reached out again, asking to meet at the same dive bar. This time, our conversation was different. Raw, unguarded, like we were kids again, before our family's dysfunction tore us apart. I was blind to how toxic she is, he said, his voice thick with regret. I spent years letting her control me, thinking it was easier. But you stood up to her. I want to be on your side, Sarah. For real. I studied him, my heart caught between hope and caution. Prove it, I said. He nodded, and for the first time, I believed he might. The climax came unexpectedly. Elena called me at midnight, her voice urgent. I found the source of the anonymous email. It's not your mother. It's someone inside Nexus, a senior VP colluding with quantum dynamics. They've been feeding your family dirt to destabilize you. My mind reeled. A traitor in my own company? I called an emergency board meeting, presenting Elena's evidence and Claire's recording. The room was silent as I laid out the conspiracy, my mother's plot, the lawyer's ties, the VP's betrayal. I turned to Helen, my voice steady. You wanted this resolved? It's resolved. The leaks stop now. The lawsuit's dead, and I'm not going anywhere. The board voted unanimously to keep me as CEO. The VP was fired, his access revoked before he could blink. Quantum Dynamics issued a public retraction, their stock plummeting as investors fled. My mother's lawsuit collapsed when Elena leaked the recording to the press, exposing her as the architect of the smear campaign. Seattle's elite turned on her, her social empire crumbling overnight. I stood in my penthouse, the city's lights stretching out before me like a promise. My phone buzzed with a text from Liam. I told Mom I'm done. I'm with you. Tears welled up, not from pain, but from release. I wasn't the villain they'd painted me as. I was the one who'd survived. The rain had stopped, and the skyline glowed clearer than ever. I raised my glass to the empty room, a silent toast to the woman I'd become. Not their scapegoat, not their ATM, but Sarah Bennett, unbreakable. Whoever was still out there, watching from the shadows, would learn the same lesson my family had. You don't cross me and walk away unscathed.